Hey designers, and welcome to another episode of The Design Show. Firstly, thanks so much to everyone who tuned in to the first episode, and thanks to those that liked and subscribed. Also thanks to everyone who gave any input and ideas over on Twitter as well. It's much appreciated. Let's get into this week's show. First up this week is Studio Feixen. They're a design studio out of Lucerne in Switzerland, and they're best known for some of their really visually impactful work for Nike, for Hermès, and for the New York Times. For the past 4 years, they've been using a really specific font in their studio communications, and due to popular demand, they've decided to release that in what they're calling a super family as a font to the public that you can purchase. Lucy Burton from It's Nice That has written a lengthy piece about it, and I'll link that in the caption down below. Here are a few visuals of it. In Lucy's article, she interviews the designer from the studio, Felix Pfeffli, and he describes the font as simple and geometric, but with a friendly and slightly naive feeling. So there you have it. I'll link to their font store down below, and then you can take a look at those and maybe use some of those in your own work. Next up this week is not necessarily news, but I've been doing a little bit of research for a passion project. I try to do one project a week or one piece of work a week outside of the usual client work, sometimes just to have the freedom to do things without restrictions, and sometimes just to keep myself sane. This week I've been looking at beer packaging. I have an idea for a project that I'd like to try and do where I design 17 different beer cans, and each one would be tied to the UN sustainability goals, or one of the UN sustainability goals. Then if I can get a brand to pick that up and produce those on their existing beers, maybe we could put the stories of the goals physically into the hands of people and help them understand things that they could do to help those goals be achieved. So in doing this, I've done quite a bit of research on it, and one of the things I've done is put together a bucket on Dribbble with all of my favorite beer can designs that I could find across the platform, and I thought that'd be fun to share with everyone. So in the caption down below, you'll be able to go and find a link and go and check out that bucket of different cans. Some of them I've chosen because they're very typographic and they've got, you know, big powerful branding or good messaging on them. Some of them are just striking with regards to colors, and then some of them maybe use really nice illustrations that could maybe tell a kind of deeper story or be able to communicate different elements of the goals, for example. But also, if you know of any beer brands or any other packaging for that matter that helps communicate like a deeper meaning than just the product itself, then please share it to me, and hopefully that can help with the inspiration for this one too. First up this week is a guy called Cody Muir. He actually came to my attention in the comments of the previous video. He's an illustrator, and he has like a really intense and grainy style. A lot of his work is really striking, and I think they would make really nice website headers, for example. You can see here in this piece of Pier 17 in Lower Manhattan, just a really vibrant color palette. Also looks like almost every element in the image is a gradient, which gives it a lot of depth. I think the exposure is really nice. It's like almost like a HDR photograph. You can see that only a real small element goes to 100% black and to 100% white. The exposure is like really perfect across the board. Although he doesn't seem to have many pieces online, I noticed something that's quite consistent, and that was that he combines these really realistic scenarios with almost surreal and psychedelic elements. This is enhanced then by his almost sort of supernatural color palette. I'd really like to see how he produces these pieces and how much of it is made up of kind of drawn objects versus how much of this stuff is brushed together. But it's really cool. Second up this week is a guy called Ruslan Siiz. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's an interactive designer from Warsaw, and I chose to showcase him for the compositions and the transitions that he puts into his website designs. I think he's got a really just amazing ability of making kind of multiple pages feel like they're all part of one experience. Yeah, here's some examples. Typographically, this one isn't necessarily my favorite, but the three-dimensional transitions and the little animation to reveal the menu, for example, it shows this great attention to detail that I think really just lift the whole experience to the next level. The layouts and the compositions in his work in the own website, in my opinion, these are typographically really strong. Particularly, I love the bubbles and how they warp the text underneath. It's a shame these have disappeared from the deployed version. I checked out the actual built version of this website, which is live, and they're not using that. It's just done with a mouse over, which is still really cool, but it's just not quite as polished as what the designs were in the original sense. This project for fashion brand Coma is stepping pretty close to what I like to call the hipster web, and that's websites that really compromise UX and then more often than not conversions in order to be in real on-trend design styles. Actually, the biggest example I can think of that is a local brand here in Copenhagen called Han Copenhagen. It's a fashion brand also, and they have ironically designed their website in an Excel document. I'll show you an example of it here. Still, in Ruslan's work, I think there's some really nice elements like the navigation. It just gives you a taste of what's behind the click. The UX problems do come in a little bit though when you start introducing things like this vertical scrolling side panel within a scrolling page. There's possibilities to get stuck and so on. But overall, I love the compositions and some of the interactive elements that go into his work. So I'll link him in the caption down below and go check out his profile. Last up is a UI UX designer called Anton, who is bringing back something that I think the internet has been sorely lacking since flat design came in and made everything simple. I mean, boring. It's been many years since I've seen any kind of skeuomorphic design, but this one I think does a really good job of also being able to fit into current web trends. It's really hitting the nail on the head for me. It's a perfect mix of flat, clean design with that tactile look and feel from like 10 years ago. Where buttons looked like they were good enough to touch. If anyone knows of any other good examples of skeuomorphic design or people designing in this style that I can take a look at, please send it to me because I'd love to see it. This was actually the only one in Anton's portfolio. He's got a lot of other good work, but none of this kind of skeuomorphic look. But Anton, keep at it. The internet could use a little bit more personality in my opinion. But that's it for this week's show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you've got any design news or anyone you think I should feature on the show, then please let me know over on Twitter. But otherwise, thanks so much for watching and see you next week.